Renowned surgeon Dr. Eric Parker was midway through a crucial procedure when cops stormed into the operating room. 10-year-old Mia, his daughter, saw her father being brought away in handcuffs and stared in despair and bewilderment. Eric was well known for his commitment and talent, so the hospital was shocked by his unexpected arrest at such a sensitive period. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. Maya was terrified and perplexed, unable to comprehend what was going on. Who would arrest her dad, particularly in the middle of surgery? When Mia found out the surprising cause for her father's detention, her life fell apart, and she vowed never to speak to him again. When it happened, Mia was relaxing on a seat in a park outside her dad's hospital job. She was there waiting for her dad to finish his shift with her mother, eating a sandwich. She had once asked, "How much longer, Mom?" since she was so happy to see her father. "Just have patience, my love." Christina, her mother, had informed her that he'll be here soon. He had informed her that after his operation was over, he would text her. But when she saw that she had no messages yet, she thought that perhaps he had wanted to surprise them. Well, she was wrong about that, but she was definitely surprised by what she saw next. Mia hadn't noticed it yet, and she was still smiling as she approached her father, who turned pale with shock as soon as he laid eyes on her. Maya was just about to ask him whether everything was all right when she noticed an officer was walking next to him, looking very serious and angry. "Even Mia, sweetie, go home. I love you," Eric called out to her as the officer guided him to her car, which was parked just outside the hospital. Mia was completely shocked by what she was seeing, and her mother had joined her by then as well. "Help him!" she yelled, while tears streamed down her face. Christina couldn't believe what was happening, and she ran to the car, slamming her fists on the window. "Eric, what is happening? This has to be a mistake. Please, you have to let him go," she screamed. But the officer simply instructed her to get away from the car. Once the vehicle had departed, Christina composed herself. Telling her daughter to get in the car, she wanted to show her strength for Mia. They were heading straight to the station to see what was going on. Desperate for information, Mia and Christina hurried through the police station's sliding doors. They learned less the more questions they asked. Police walked by without making eye contact. Mia pulled at her mother's sleeve, growing increasingly irritated. She said, "Why won't they tell us anything?" Christina shook her head, a determined and worried mask on her features. Despite being surrounded by the sound of police radios and the shuffling of feet, they felt trapped and alone in their desperate search for answers. The door finally opened, and Eric was led in handcuffs, linking his wrists. Eric's appearance shocked them both. His surgical scrubs were wrinkled and stained, his hair unkempt. Dark circles under his eyes told of stress and sleepless hours. "You pretty outside?" Mia slumped onto a cold metal bench. Her mind raced with questions, each one deepening the knot of worry in her stomach. Back in the room, Eric and Christina spoke in hushed tones. "The charges are severe," Eric murmured, his face pale. Christina's hands trembled slightly as she listened, her eyes never leaving his. "But I didn't do it, Christina," Eric added quickly, his voice firm yet desperate. After what felt like hours, Christina reappeared in the doorway. "Everything will be okay," she whispered, giving Mia a tight hug. Together they walked towards the exit of the station, the evening air cool against their faces. The car ride home was quiet. The city lights blurring past as Christina drove. The house felt different, heavier somehow as they moved through the evening routines. Dinner was quiet, the usual chatter replaced by a thick silence that neither seemed able to break. The air was filled with unasked questions and unspoken worries. The next morning at school, Maya felt eyes on her as she walked through the halls. Whispers followed her from locker to classroom, each word like a small sting. Walking down the crowded school hallway, Mia caught snippets of conversations. "Did you hear about her dad?" One voice snickered. "He's a criminal," another chimed in, laughter following the harsh words. She had to know what others were talking about her father. She took a deep breath, opened the school computer, and hesitated a fraction of a second before entering his name in the search box. To make sure no one was looking, she looked around the room. Mia's eyes became wide as she clicked on the first story, and the screen filled with headlines. It included the precise time and date of Eric's arrest in addition to brief and imprecise statements of the charges. Mia skimmed the paper. Her attention became more focused as she read each word. Mia began reading more stories and pieced together the accusations made against her father. Despite the legal jargon in each report, she managed to piece together enough information to understand the gravity of the charges. Her eyes never left the screen as her breathing became more shallow. She was too busy concentrating on the wonderful words that portrayed her father in such a negative light to notice when the bell for lunch ended. She tried to make sense of the father she knew and the one depicted in the papers, but all she could feel was anger and uncertainty. The loud ring of the school bell snapped Mia back to reality. She quickly shut down the computer, her thoughts still swirling. Standing up, she barely noticed the other students bustling around her, all rushing to their next class. Mia couldn't sit through another class, not with her thoughts in turmoil. She left the school grounds, her pace fast and determined as she headed home. Mia stormed into the house, slamming the door behind her. "Mom, what's going on with Dad? I saw the articles." Christina, taken aback by Mia's sudden entrance and sharp tone, dropped the book she was holding. "Yeah, let's sit down and talk about this," she stuttered, her mind racing to formulate a response to Mia's pointed questions. "I was going to tell you," Christina began, her voice weak. She tried to explain the little she knew, but her words seemed to stumble over each other. Mia's eyes filled with tears, and frustration didn't miss the hesitation. "You're hiding something, aren't you?" Mia accused, unable to contain her anger. Mia turned on her heel and stormed up, reaching her room. She slammed the door shut and turned the lock with a sharp click. Christina made frequent visits to the detention center, hoping each time to understand more about Eric's situation. From him with her notepad stuffed with notes and questions from their earlier conversations. Eric looked worn out, but was always willing to explain things in an attempt to allay her concerns. Christina's commitment to assist Eric remained steadfast, even as each visit ended with her feeling a mixture of perplexity and optimism. "Do you want to come with me to see Dad?" One morning, Christina questioned Mia with a hopeful tone in her voice. Mia shook her head, her face unyielding. "No thanks," she mumbled, scarcely taking her eyes off her food. Christina sighed, the distance between Eric and Mia hurting her heart. Her keys jangling in her palm as she left the house served as a subtle reminder of the widening distance between them in their family. As the trial started, Christina was there in the front row of the courtroom every day. She took meticulous notes, her eyes rarely straying from the proceedings. Each witness called in, each piece of evidence presented, she followed with intense focus, trying to understand the depth of the situation her husband was in. Despite Christina's attempts to involve her, Mia refused to attend the trial. "I can't see him," she said quietly whenever her mother asked. She couldn't bring herself to face the room, the lawyers, or her father. Instead, Mia spent her days distracted at school and restless at home, avoiding conversations about the trial and burying herself in schoolwork and music, trying to keep the reality of her father's situation at bay. As the trial progressed, local media swarmed the courthouse, eager to cover the sensational story of a respected doctor facing serious charges. Reporters often approached Christina, who politely declined to comment. As more witnesses testified, the evidence stacked against Eric seemed overwhelming. Each testimony was more damning than the last, with detailed descriptions of the alleged misconduct. Mia, passing by the kitchen, overheard her mother on the phone discussing Eric's trial. "It doesn't look good," Christina said, her voice strained. Mia paused, her hand on the wall for support. The reality of her father's possible future hit her hard. She felt a growing sense of dread. Her anxiety mixed with her earlier fury, and she silently withdrew to her room, the conversation's weight bearing down on her. The likelihood that Eric would receive a significant sentence developed as the main conversation subject in the courthouse hallways as the trial went on. Legal experts conjectured on the length of incarceration. A series of emails and papers that suggested Eric had been set up by a co-worker were revealed in court, marking a dramatic reversal in the case. Eric's face displayed signals of relaxation that had not seen in weeks, while Christina screamed and covered her mouth with her hands. Further investigation revealed the motive behind the framing: envy. Eric's colleague, who had long coveted his position and recognition, had orchestrated the scheme. Details of the colleague's actions unfolded through more uncovered emails and covert recordings. The prosecution, caught off guard, huddled in urgent conversation, their case unraveling in the courtroom. Papers shuffled and laptops clicked rapidly as attorneys adjusted their approaches. The atmosphere in the courtroom and at home began to shift from despair to cautious optimism. Eric walked through the door, a free man. Christina and Eric paused, his eyes meeting hers, a gentle smile spreading across his face. He sat down his bag and opened his arms, inviting her closer. Mia hesitated, then moved forward, the initial awkwardness lingering in the air as they embraced. Later, sitting at the kitchen table, Mia and Eric finally talked. Eric recounted the details of his exoneration, while Mia listened intently, nodding as they discussed the evidence that had freed him. Eric explained how he always believed the truth would prevail. Mia absorbed every word, the barriers between them beginning to crumble as understanding and relief replaced the doubts that had once clouded their relationship. Mia took a deep breath, her voice soft. "Dad, I'm sorry I doubted you," she said. Eric shook his head gently, taking her hand. "There's nothing to apologize for, Mia. It was a hard time for all of us," he replied, his tone forgiving. Their conversation marked a turning point, mending the rift that had grown between them during the months of uncertainty and fear. Laughter and conversation filled the room as the family gathered around the dinner table that evening. The excitement of Eric's cleared name and their reunion was reflected in the lighter ambiance and lunch. There was an air of confidence as they discussed plans for the future. They embraced a hope for the future and felt completely united for the first time in months. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.